Hello. Today I want to talk about Ballyogan in Dublin. First of all, I want to discard and just be adults here and live in reality and be sensible creatures and honour what our senses are giving to us and move past the racist card, the anti-immigrant card, the far-right card, the whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. You get lost in that stuff, and it ultimately means nothing when you're dealing with fundamentals of human life and existence. So, from my perspective, what I was seeing in those videos was, over the last day or two, is people from a certain community, which is their community. We all have our own, and look, if nothing else, this mess has given me some valuable geography lessons, because I'm learning of places that I didn't know existed, or I've never heard of before, which is always nice to learn. But so the people I see, they're from their community. To their understanding is, and they're right in their understanding, that you have, because I've seen it as well, you've busloads of men from a different continents, being brought into their area, into their community, against their will. They don't want it, clearly. There's a massive enough number of them that don't want it, and for every one person that's there saying that they don't want it, you can be sure you have 2 or 3 that will say they welcome it, and you'll have 10 or 15 also that will say, I agree with people that don't want it here. That's just the nature of the numbers, what they are in totality, who knows if you can ever know that. But beyond the name calling, which is for college students, and then they bring that stuff, they drag that stuff out of their degree classes and into the real world, and they fog up everything. They fog things up, and we assume because someone's after been through college. I think that assumption is waning now. I think it's swinging the other way. But for a long while we've assumed that because someone is out of college and they've earned a degree, that they're knowledgeable about what they're saying, and that anything they will say, because of a certain knowledge in a specific area, that intelligence or that insight spills over into other areas, and therefore making them knowledgeable about most of the things that they talk about. That's an illusion. That's a nonsense, especially when you're dealing with groups of people being shoved into communities, new communities to them, old communities to the people of that community. So when you have massive trafficking of people and you're shoving them, and the state is telling people this is happening whether you like it or not, and the arm of the state, is it even meant to be that upholds justice, upholds the law of the land and the constitution of the land, constitution of the people at that time, which they've decided on in their actions of adhering to it for so long. But when you have the state and the Gardaí and all of the rest of it forcing these people in against the will of the locals, naturally in any habitat, when you're dealing with scarcity, you're dealing with fear, you're dealing with anxieties, you're dealing with food, love, procreation, children, women, safety, security, pride, and leadership questions. What happens when you put both groups, take any 2 groups of people, and you shove them in together in close proximity? You'll have conflict. It's inevitable. History tells you so. You have people getting along with each other. You also have massive violent clashes between people. And from what I'm seeing, those people from that community do not want this foisted upon them. Nor does, I would believe, nearly any community in Ireland want this shoved on them. Not only shoved onto them, but they're being forced to also pay for it with their taxes, okay? So, today, tomorrow, 6 months' time, 10 years' time, they and their kids will have to go without because of what they're being forced to pay for now, okay? And that's just looking at the financial angle of it. But when we move into protest. You've a constitutional right. Like, the law of this land, the fundamental law of this land, is that people have the freedom of expression, and they have the freedom to protest something and use their expression and their protest to voice a dislike or an outright opposition to something, save in accordance with the law, as it says. Okay, so provided you are not trespassing anyone or you're not violating any other law, not act, law. Okay, so once you're not violating any other law, which would be to steal or to injure or to threaten another person, you can protest. Now, if your protest lands on outside of a gate of private property, you might be trespassed. But if it is the guards that come and try and trespass you from that property, they're now overstepping their jurisdiction. They're standing into private property domain when they're public servants. So without the express approval of the owner of that property, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I understand it, Gardaí have no ability to trespass you from private property because it's outside of the jurisdiction. They're not the hall monitors of people's private property. You know, they deal with the public. They deal with public property, which the public have an absolute right to as well. So if you're standing on public property, which would be roads, footpaths, fields that are in public ownership, whatever the case may be, then you absolutely have a right to protest there. So, and your protest would be putting my body in the way of this happening. It's not a verbal protest. It can be that too. It's a physical protest. I'm trying to stop you from doing this to my community. Now, as far as I know, as long as you are not breaking any other law, not act, law, the Gardaí have to respect your right to protest. But that's not what we seen last night. So as far as what I was looking at, and as far as what I understood from what I was seeing, you have people that are protesting. You have an unbelievable show of force against girls, women, men and young fellas. Unbelievable show of force. How many uniformed officers were there? Staggering number of them. I wouldn't even want to count them, but I would say it is at least 40. At least 40. How many vans? Apparently there was a helicopter in the air as well. How many vans, unmarked or marked? How many guards, detectives on normal clothes, plain clothes, or uniformed? How many were there? For what exactly? Why are they there? They can say they're there to uphold the peace, but if you have a contained protest in a specific location, and it's generally been in that specific location for the guts of the day, why do you have, again, a massive show of force, a massive presence of Gardaí, riot squads, or whatever, public safety, whatever you want to call them, right? So why are they there in such a force? So you wouldn't mind a couple of vans or a couple of squad cars keeping an eye on things, but then you get these lads turning up just when it's getting dark out. Again, these boys are not flown in, these boys are driven in by the busload. They get out with their batons and they're not exactly the friendliest of looking uniforms, are they? Like, you know, these boys are here to move you along. But from what? From what I can tell, a perfectly legitimate and legal protest. I don't remember. I didn't see any of these people being trespassed by the owners of the property. So again, correct me if I'm wrong on the legal stuff, but as far as I'm concerned, and it's becoming a pretty expected or predictable action from the guards, is they'll come into a bottleneck of a protest and they'll just come straight up into your face. Straight up into your face. Who's the instigator there of threatening or intimidating behaviour when you've such a massive amount of these men coming? And women too. There's women thrown in there as well wearing their uniforms. And that's fine. So you've men and women that are coming, stepping up into your face, telling you if you don't move you'll be arrested. Arrested for what? Arrested for what? For protesting? Your job is to protect me and to make sure that I can protest and to keep the peace between protesters and those who would be opposed to it. Your job is not to come in here and start stepping up into people's space and personal space and start threatening them, telling them you'll move them on. For what? You are overstepping your jurisdiction. And as far as I know, and as far as I'm... Never mind the legal side of it. Morally, if you're after overstepping your jurisdiction and you are no longer engaged in the work that you are hired to do, which is to maintain the peace and to protect the constitutional rights of people in the country, in the nation, then you are no longer in the role of what you think you're playing here. You are now entering into the role of private citizen, where you're making personal decisions and you're acting outside of the oath that you're after taking. So all of these guards, I would imagine, there's civil cases to be taken against every one of them that started touching people, grabbing people and stepping up into their space. It's shocking. It's shocking. And any guard that is doing their job and you're enjoying this and you keep turning up and you probably have it in powder in the nose before you're heading over there because it looks like that, and you're ready to bust heads and you're ready to get in there and start manhandling women. Like 3 male guards I seen and a female joining in then, manhandling some woman as she's screaming, "What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing?" You came up behind her, rocked her forward, and then doubled her over and walked her away nearly spread-eagled. Crazy carry on, recorded and seen across the world. This is what you're at, lads. This is what you're at, and none of you are, the ones that are walking away probably have good conscience. What are ye doing? What are ye doing? Is there some non-disclosure or gag orders on you that you're not stepping out and... Bring it back a sec. If the guards that are after leaving in the last few years have left because of a conflict in their conscience, where they felt they might have to overstep their jurisdiction to perform the role that they're being told from top down, if you're not coming out and standing with the people, then what was the point of leaving in the first place? What was the point? You should be standing there protecting them, men, women and children as well. Do the job of a guard even if you don't have the role of it anymore. Do the job, be a guardian of the peace. Don't accept these fellas coming up with their batons and their shields and their attitude, you know, and stepping up into people's spaces and then trying to say that the person they're stepping to is the one who's in the wrong. Absolutely not. Like, you're overstepping your jurisdiction. You're now private citizens and you're threatening and intimidating people by stepping into their space when they don't want it. And regardless of whether people say, oh, it's the inspector or it's the sergeant or it's whoever sending me down here, no, it's not. No, it's not. They can give you orders, all right, but if those orders conflict with the Constitution that you swore an oath to uphold, then their orders are absolutely ineffective and useless. They only have the power of effect based on what your actions are. So it's your choice. You have your defence there. It's called the Constitution of Ireland. It's the thing you swore an oath to uphold. It's the thing you swore an oath to be fair with the Irish people. So, moving on from that then. How long do people expect to be treated like this and for it to continue in the same vein? You know, just being battered off the streets by people that they don't know, who show up in massive, massive numbers with serious hardware behind them. How long do people expect this to go on? Because it's going to continue going on as long as the whole human trafficking thing is continued. When we're being forced to accept massive amounts of strange men into our properties or into our communities. So as long as that's inevitable and that's going to continue, this is for the men of Ireland. When do you foresee this stopping? Do you think that the government will stop at some stage and just go, okay, we won't do it this year, we won't do it here, we'll hear you what you're saying, you didn't like it all, so we'll stop now, we've done enough? Sorry, I don't believe that they're going to. I don't believe that they have any intentions of stopping until they're stopped. And you can look at the votes in the elections and all that, and that's all great stuff, but that's only one layer of it. That's the political layer. There's many, many layers to this thing that supersede the political layer, and one of them is strict existence. Physiological existence as a real human being that breathes and eats and lives. And the threat that is being forced on him, her, them, their family and their community. How long will you stop? How long will you stop yourself from resisting that threat in any meaningful manner? You know? And I think what I'm seeing as well is there are different types of men. So they come in all shapes and sizes, but they all come in all kinds of characters, different temperaments. They're built for different things. They're more drawn towards different things, and they're more avoidant of other things. Okay, so what I'm seeing is you've one group of men who lived the cowboy life when they were young, got in trouble, had the fights, been in hospital, nearly died, came back, done it all over again, cycled like that for years, and it exhausts people. Up in court, in and out of jail, that kind of stuff. You know, run-ins with guards, all that. And at a certain point, these boys, they might have kids and they might have a good partner, and they're just sick of it. They want to settle down. They get off everything in this straight and narrow, all that stuff. No more fights, no more trouble. Look, I just want to go unnoticed and live my days out. Grand. You also have the counter to that, which is the total opposite of boys who've never been in a fight. They've never felt threatened in any meaningful or serious way. They've never felt like this could be the moment where I die. They've never been punched in the mouth or punched in the face or held down and kicked to any serious degree. So they've probably never been in a fight. They probably had a couple of shouty matches, and they want nothing to do with any potential violence. They want nothing to do with any potential conflict, which is inevitable when you're standing up for something. And then in the middle, you have the lads who might have best of both worlds, had a bit of scuffle, you know, they're probably well able, they're probably the sports players of the town, and they're at home with their nose in a bag. Most of them. There's probably not most, but there's a massive number of people that are just working during the week and burying their face in snow on the weekend, and then they're shook, rattled, and the last thing they want is a confrontation with an aggressive man, aggressive male. Okay, but we need to reconcile that as a people. I don't fancy losing everything that I have in my life and in the future because a good bulk of Irish men decided they'd rather stick their nose in a bag on the weekend. We need those people. We need you. We need you to straighten yourself out. We need you to grow up and get serious and say, right, for the next 6 months I'm applying myself to something that seems to matter to a massive amount of people in my town. I'm not really feeling it because I'm too busy buried in the bathroom with another few of the boys, like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it away for a couple of months and see how I feel about this real situation that's in front of me. That's what I would like to see happen, because I think in order for this thing to stop, each and every town and village is going to need at least 100 men that are willing to stand there and say to them boys in the riot squad, you're not moving us here. We're standing on principle, we're standing on the law, we're protesting, and ye cannot come here and interrupt that. I think there's conversations that need to be happening between the guards and between the local populations, and I think they need to be held seriously, they need to be listened to, and they needed to be acted upon. Because for the guards to just stay in their little bubble where they believe that they can do whatever they want to people, and they'll all cover each other's backs, they'll all write up each other's statements, and they'll all sign off on the same nonsense, and they'll go to court and lie about it. That needs to end. That needs to end. And any of ye that are in that job and you've a little bit of doubt in your conscience about it, now is the perfect time to go, I'm walking away from this. I see what they do when they're on shift. I know what they're at. I see the drugs go missing. I see the money go missing. I see how they treat heroin addicts. I see how they treat people. There's good guards and there's bad guards, because there's good men and there's bad men. It's not the role, it's power in the role that negative and bad people tend to be drawn towards, and that's fine. But you also have good people that are drawn towards it and don't wish to use it in any kind of maleficent way or malignant way, you know, invoking Disney deities and all here, you know. But for the men, I think it's time that we stand up and go down to the guard stations and say, we need to have a serious conversation about what's going on here. And if you're not willing locally, as community guards in the community, to be making decisions to haul these boys off because you know that what they're doing is wrong. They're going in just pulling the men out of the protests just so they can shove the women and kids aside. And these charges would probably be dismissed in court because they probably don't have a leg to stand on, because what they're doing is illegal. They're targeting people and pulling them out of constitutionally protected protests for the sake of furthering a political end. That's what they're doing. The police have become actively political. There's no way of colouring this up anymore. They can instigate and they can create these nonsense public order offences all they want. But what they're doing is infringing on your right. Human right. It's not a law that gives you this right. It's you. The fact of you being alive and being breathing and being a sentient animal with instincts gives you that right to say, I don't want this, and I will put my body in the way to try and stop this. So the men around need to have a good, long, hard conversation with themselves, and they need to go and talk to the guards, and the guards need to be willing to be open to that, and if not, they need to get out of these communities. Because the consent that people have to be policed by these current crop of guards is fast wearing thin. And I think enough people need to get up out of the pub, go away from the golf course for a while, turn off the Champions League or whatever it is you're watching, go down to the guard station and say, you need to come out here because we want to have a word with you, and you need to listen to this. No longer will we pay for you if all you're doing is coming in here and terrorising people and furthering political goals that the communities have no interest in seeing being implemented there. That's what needs to happen. And if the guards aren't willing to do that, they aren't guards anymore. They aren't guards anymore. They are private armies hired by politicians and hired by big businesses. And it needs to end. And another sad one as well, and this will take a while to get over, I think, because you're kind of harkening back to the Civil War, but on a more watered down version. But similar sentiments and similar conflicts are coming from it. You know, boys that grow up together all their lives, and now they're kind of looking at each other sideways, going, "Why aren't you coming up there? Haven't shown your face at a protest. Like, what's the story there? Why aren't you? What's the fear? Why aren't you coming out?" So you're going to see relationships break down and be under severe strain. You'll see it in families. Like, all the strings seem to be bouncing off the head of the guitar and going. You know, so that's my 2 cents on that. I think the scenes are horrific. Absolutely arbitrarily just deciding to go over and grab people. Kidnapping. That's what that's called. Kidnapping. Just going taking people, putting them into vehicles against their wishes and against their consent, and bringing them somewhere. Kidnapping. They have absolutely, Gardaí have no right to take you anywhere if you haven't broken the law and you don't consent to being taken anywhere. That's illegal. That's kidnapping. If I done that to anyone, I'm going to jail. We need to get beyond looking at the guards as having some sort of armour of God that allows them to go and act in whatever way they want. We need to move past that, and I think we're at that point. But the guards need to come out and meet the communities and talk seriously to them and listen. Don't talk at them, listen to them. And ultimately, as public servants, do what you're told. Let the communities decide what level of peace they want to tolerate, and then you uphold that. Simple as that.